in Zoom. We have over 100 people. My name is Shellen Sailing. I am the interim chair of the Youth Plastic Action Network, with a youth constituency that was launched at INC 5.2 on August 8th, 2025, dedicated to the INC process as well as plastics and hopefully the future plastics treaty. Thank you all so much for this webinar. Honestly, we've been overwhelmed by the support and the response to it. During this next 2 hours, we will have segment 1, which will be a capacity building session, followed by segment 2, which will be a session dedicated to a roundtable with the INC chair candidates. As mentioned in a previous email, it's worth noting that the youth do not endorse or do not publicly have a preference for the candidates. The goal of the session was to make a neutral space and to allow people access to these informal discussions, as well as the ability to understand more about multilateral environmental negotiations, especially since this hopefully treaty is one of the most important treaties of our generation. We believe that accessibility and transparency is important. I'll now hand it off to Benson, who will review the housekeeping rules.
Hello, everyone. So sorry for the delay. Just give me a second. I will set my camera and then. Am I visible? Thank you, guys. And I welcome all of you for taking out your time and to actively show interest for this webinar. As you know, that this webinar, we are focusing more on the interactive part to get to know who are the potential candidates for the chair position and all. So for this specific webinar, as a team, as YPAN, we have come up with certain ground rules that I'm going to state briefly, that all of you participants should understand and should take note of while being a participant. So this session is designed as a neutral youth-led space to learn about the INC chair role and hear from chair candidates in a respectful and safe environment. First, it should be neutral. YPAN and co-hosting partners, we do not endorse or support any chair candidate. Our role is to facilitate learning and dialogue only, and the statements expressed are independent opinions and views. Then leads to another rule, which is anonymity and privacy. We recognize that some participants may wish to remain anonymous. So registration is required for Zoom participation, but also to accommodate other participants who are not comfortable with registering. They can gain access to live stream options through different social media platforms. And for cameras and chat, options for participants will be disabled to protect privacy and ensure a focused discussion. And for the questions and engagement segment, all questions will be submitted anonymously in advance or through the moderated Q&A process. And there will be, unfortunately, no direct interventions from the floor for this webinar. And some of the most important points to remember are this is a professional and respectful space. So there should be no personal attacks, campaigning, or disruptive behavior. As for the recording of this webinar, this session is recorded and will be shared publicly. By joining, you consent to being part of the recording. Feel free to change your name if you are uncomfortable with your screen name being shared in the recording. And the last is the principle that YPAN as a team, we sincerely follow and we sincerely have adopted, which is safe space principle. So this is a learning space, not a negotiation or decision-making forum. So the goal for us is to bring transparency, capacity building, and inclusion. So these are the main housekeeping rules for this webinar, and I hand over to my colleague. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good participation and enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Benson. Now we will introduce Dr. Alexandra Harrington. Dr. Alexandra Harrington is a member of the legal drafting group for Guinea-Bissau. She has a PhD as well as has been involved in multiple multilateral environmental negotiations. Thank you, Dr. Alexandra Harrington. And we will give you the floor to deliver the capacity building session.
Of course. Thank you so much, Shellen, and thank you all to the Youth Plastic Action Network and everyone else who's co-hosting this and who's tried desperately to teach me how to properly have my slides on the right side, and yet my background is flipped, so I do apologize for that. And I also just would like to point out that I am here as an advisor, as I often am, to YPAN, and not for any particular national representation. This is only as a legal expert and one of those rather dull lawyers in the room. So welcome to all of you. And what we're going to do over the next half hour or perhaps a little shorter time, depending on if there are any technical issues or not, will be just to walk through what the actual role of the chair is in the INC process, as well as how, assuming we have to have an election, so how we would elect a chair if we get to the 7th of February, which is the date set aside for INC 5.3 in Geneva, and if we don't have an agreement, an acclamation process. But we'll talk about what that is as well. But these are the two things that when we were talking as a group, we really all felt, and I certainly concurred, needed to be a bit more clarified before we have a discussion with the candidates and before we get their views and understand really the imports and the impact of having a chair and what that role means to the process. Shall I share my slides directly or they're in the deck? Yes, perfect. Shellen is nodding, and when Shellen nods, that usually means yes, so I will do that. And here we are, and I will put this into presentation. Share the screen. Are you seeing my screen? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All these years later, my friends, Zoom and I are still no friends. So, whatever you're going to talk about today is the chair. And I think there is a great deal of lack of clarity about what the chair does and what the chair doesn't necessarily do in this process, and also where to find this information. So the chair has both a formal role and also what has really become a very practical kind of informal role in this process. And as a reminder, we have now been through 6 actually INTs. So we had INT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.1, which we didn't realize was 5.1 at the time, and then 5.2. We have had 2 different chairs who brought their own sense of really commitment and dedication to the process and understanding of what the process would be. And obviously, this has been a very difficult process because it is such a new topic and our time frame was so tight, and it is such a really all-encompassing topic that we have seen different leadership styles come into play, which we'll get to in a moment. But those leadership styles have been framed very much by what is in the rules of procedure. And I know for many people who are not lawyers and even those who are, the idea of reading a rules of procedure document is not exactly the most entertaining or thrilling reading. But here it is quite critical for many things, including understanding what, as a matter of agreement, the parties who are now involved in the negotiation process agreed the role of the chair would be. And the rules of procedure, if you want to find them, I should mention, if you want to find them, they are easily available on the INC Secretariat website. If you look even at the most recent, so INC 5.1 or 5.2, under the official documents, you will find them. And these are rules of procedure that were adopted in Dakar, in Senegal, in early 2022, so before INC 1, that frame the way that we actually conduct the meetings, the roles of the meetings, etc. So what we have coming out of the rules of procedure now is an understanding of what the chair is obligated to do or has the power to do within the meetings itself or themselves. And these tend to start at Rule 19. I am hoping none of you are following along in the rule book because that would be utterly boring in many ways. But we start with Rule 19. And Rule 19 allows the chair and requires the chair to be the one to actually open the meeting. This is a very formal process for those of you who've been at INCs before. You will recall that when we all come into the room and we're all excited, and those who are representing states will sit behind their national the flag, the desk, and those who are members of the observers will find seats, often in a quite crowded capacity. And we sit down on the podium on the dais. There will be the chair as well as members of the INC Bureau and Secretariat. But the one who actually calls the meeting to order, who opens it and who uses the ceremonial gavel to open the meeting is indeed the chair. And so without the chair, it's often difficult to conceive of how we would start this process because he or she has the legal ability to open the meeting, to declare it open. Once the meeting is opened, then the running of the meeting is very much on the chair. So the chair, either he or she, thus far we've had two wonderful men. So we say he or she because we have 3 candidates, 2 of whom are men, 1 of whom is a woman. We'll open the debate. So we'll facilitate the debate, and we'll also move us through, as we are all part of the INC process, the actual formal agenda for each of the INC sessions. This is covered by Rule 19 and Rule 20. And then we have obviously the very formal closing, or in the case of INCs 5.1 and 5.2, adjourning of the meeting to a later time. And again, this is a role that can only be done by the chair, or if the chair is not available, the acting chair. But other than that, no one else is given the authority in the rules of procedure to actually close the session. And this is also under Rule 20. Those are the very basic parameters of what the rules say that the chair can do. However, there are a number of other different things as well. So the chair has the overall obligation to ensure that there is compliance with the rules of procedure that have been created for the INC process and that have been agreed to by the INC process. This includes, as you will see on the slide in a moment, where there are questions about what is appropriate under the rules of procedure, where there are what we call points of order, rules of order questions that are raised by various members, various countries. Those are to immediately be handled and addressed by the chair, who ultimately gets to hear these particular forms of concerns and then make decisions based on what the chair perceives to be the right answer in that particular question. So first and foremost, the chair is very much involved in the rules and making sure that the rules are followed at all times. Again, this will be familiar to many of you who've been in the room for these meetings, especially the plenary sessions, or for those of you who've watched online. But the chair has the right and the responsibility to recognize speakers during the meetings. And what this means is that if you wish to take the floor as a state or as an observer, you cannot do that unless you are recognized by the chair. The chair has the ultimate right to say who can speak and also to recognize the order. So as often is the case, if we open the agenda and, for example, we say we want welcome statements in a regular INC or opening statements from countries, then rather than everyone kind of jumping towards the microphone at once, countries that wish to speak indicate so on their microphones. A list goes to the chair, and then the chair calls in order those who will be speaking. So the chair keeps those discussion points in order throughout the process. And let me see if I can get there we go. My computer wants to work. The chair also facilitates the use of voting where appropriate. If there are votes to be taken, which is another question that is often up for discussion in other parts of the rules of procedure analysis, but not necessarily here today. But if there are votes that are called for throughout the negotiation process, then that voting procedure is facilitated by the chair. So the question of when to have a vote, the formal announcements that there will be a vote, the handling of the roll call for a vote, if there is a roll call, the very formalistic elements are all handled by the chair, as well as the subsequent announcement of a decision. So if we do have a vote in any particular matter, other than obviously the election of chair, that's a bit different. But throughout the INC process, then the announcement of the actual vote decision is made by the chair as well. This is all required under Rule 20. And where there are, as I mentioned, questions of points of order. So questions where a state, for example, may believe that there has been a violation of the rules of procedure. For instance, not allowing states to speak if they had indicated they wanted to do so because perhaps they had been missed in the queue or any other type of issue. Those are handled by the chair. Also, where in the reality of our negotiation process is where it is necessary to have a limitation on either the time that each speaker can have, or to say we are going to close the list of speakers. So we can't go on forever, but we're going to close the list of speakers in, say, a minute. And indicating anyone who wants to speak immediately to get that on the list before they speak, or before that's cut off, then that is something else that is within the chair's power to do. As I mentioned, the chair has the ability also to adjourn, if necessary, if appropriate, the overall session, as we have seen done at 5.1 and 5.2, and also can suspend debates or indeed could suspend the entire INC session. So again, Rule 20 gives us all of these powers, and these are very much procedural powers. They're also very critical powers because when we think about having an international negotiation, and especially for those who've been in the INC process, they are so complex. There are so many different states, there are so many different observers that trying to organize this without having one central person who is in charge of this would be quite difficult. And the chair also does have the responsibility of chairing the meeting of the Bureau, which is a body consisting of representatives who have been selected by and approved by the INC, so the states themselves. The representatives come from their respective regions. So this is done by geographic region, by UN designation geographic region. And they sit together to create much of the policy that informs our INC processes, as well as all of the intercessional work going on in between. There is a rapporteur. There also are designated vice chairs, etc. But the ultimate job of chairing this meeting and chairing the whole process is very much within the chair's responsibility. So we do see that there is a great deal of institutional weight that comes with being chair. It is also obviously bounded by the rules of procedure. And so the chair's powers come from the rules of procedure and come from also the trust and the faith of the states that have decided to elect a person as chair. In addition to the particular powers of rules of procedure based practice for the chair, we have also seen throughout the INC process, and this is, pardon me, quite normal for many of you who will be familiar with other processes. This is something that is quite normal, that the chair has had many other practical roles that are typically endorsed by the state parties themselves to the negotiations. And in this role, we see the chair really acting as a facilitator. So not just as a facilitator of things during the meetings, but also as a facilitator of the attempt to have a negotiation and the attempt to have a text outcome that is something which is agreeable to as many states as possible. So what we've seen, for example, in past practice from our now outgoing chair, Ambassador Baez, for example, is the idea of issuing what we call non-papers, which for those of you who are not necessarily versed in the space may not make sense because it is indeed a paper. But this is a document that is not formally requested at the end of an INC by the entire INC body. So it is an informal rather than a legally requested document, but it is an attempt, or it has been served as an attempt by the chair to look at all the different proposals made, to look at the outcomes from the INC that had taken place before. So before INC 5.1, to look at the outcomes from the Ottawa round in INC 4, and then before INC 5.2 to look at what happened in INC 5.1, and offer what we call bridging proposals. So offer not the perfect text, but a text that will allow us to move forward, combining everything that happened during those rounds, and then using that as potentially the starting point for negotiation in the next round, rather than revisiting everything that had happened in the previous round. This was something that Ambassador Baez took on quite well and issued a great number of non-papers throughout the negotiation processes. And so that is certainly one way in which the chair can be very helpful. And we have seen the power of the chair extend in practice to textual elements. Obviously, this is not going above or outside of anything that has been proposed by the states that until that point. The idea is to try to reconcile all of those points together. Additionally, the INC chair has in the past convened meetings of heads of delegation for the various countries before various INC sessions to get a sense of both what their concerns are with the running, the procedural order of the meetings, for example, how the contact groups will run, so we don't have two contact groups that are addressing really key issues that are interrelated at the same time, making it impossible for countries to be in both rooms and certain negotiators to be in both rooms at the same time. And also trying to feel out the heads of delegation positions for what might go into, for example, a non-paper. During the actual INC process itself, we have seen that the chair can be very powerful in terms of convening informal meetings, trying to create dialogue and understand positions between national delegations, also regional delegations, and with the heads of delegations overall during the INC sessions. And we have also seen that the chair has been obviously quite willing thus far to meet with observers, including youth, throughout the INC processes to get their understandings and their views on what is happening and potential ways forward.
The recording has stopped.
We do have a number of different options here.
This meeting is being recorded.
And what I'm hoping this kind of gives you a sense of is that the chair has both a very formal role and also an informal role, and both of these are very critical. But obviously the chair cannot go outside the powers that have been given to him or her, and cannot go even in the informal practices outside of what has already been discussed, what has already been put on the table, and really is bounded by the will of the states. So the chair has many powers, but not complete authority and complete power in the sense that the chair cannot really move states beyond where they're willing to go. So I think that is really important to framing how we understand what we'll be hearing from the chair or the chair's candidates. And just to understand what comes next in the process. So on the 7th of February, when we are all, or many of us, in the room in Geneva for INC 5.3, obviously the hope is, given that we have a number of different days left, that we may be able to have an agreement and what we would call a chair by acclamation, where everyone would agree to a chair's candidate and would simply be needing to confirm that candidate, as well as to address some other issues like the rapporteur opening, etc., vacancy in the Bureau. If that is not the case, then the way that we handle the election of the chair is under the Rule 9 of Rules of Procedure for the election of all INC Bureau members. And Rule 9 sets the basis, and then we go on from there. We also tie in some of the later rules of procedure as well. So in Rule 11, there's a very short statement that if the chair is unable to continue to perform his or her functions, a new chair shall be elected for the unexpired term. This is obviously where we get the understanding that we will be able to elect a new chair. And this does need to be done by the entirety of the INC itself, which is why we are having a special, very limited in time and scope, convening and meeting of the INC itself at 5.3. As a general matter, when we may have statements made, we may have various opportunities to speak according to the scenario notes that have been given to us by the Bureau and by the Secretariat in terms of how this will run. But generally, under the rules of procedure, once voting starts, and this is the same for anything, whether it is for the chair or some other form of, for example, text, etc. Once voting starts, members cannot make statements. They cannot make any other form of intervention until we get to a question of whether there is an objection to actually how the rule is being conducted. So I do think it's important to understand that there will be a time perhaps for speaking, but that time will be limited. And then once the voting takes place, it will only be able to be interrupted with a rules of procedure based question. Now, this is my final slide, I promise, and then I will attempt to turn this over on time. But just to point out that unlike other areas of practice, and if you've seen voting in other treaty regimes where we've been voting on actual textual decisions. When we have an election process in the INC, there is a default setting, basically, which says that all elections are to be conducted through the use of secret ballot. And what this means is that there is no standard question of are there any objections, which is often a very standard way of taking votes unless there is a specific request to use the ballot. In this case, we go to a ballot. It is a secret ballot method. What this means is that typically we will go into a time of silence. The doors will be barred, so you can't go in, you can't go out during the actual voting itself. And each country, and I should point out, it is only the countries, it is only the member states who are able to vote in this process. So observers will be able to be present, but they will not be voting. Each country will formally go and typically walk up and give the ballot into the ballot box, which will be maintained by the UN security staff, which always does such an amazing job in keeping us all safe and keeping information safe. And then that ballot box will be taken away. The votes will be counted, and we will all be brought back in to hear what the results are. Again, this is something that is very formal. There is a certain element of ritual to it, and it is certainly something to see. Under Rule 46, if we have more than 2 candidates for an election for any member of the Bureau, this obviously includes the chair, then we see who obtains what on the first round of voting. If there is a clear majority for one candidate, then that candidate will be considered elected as chair. If there is no majority at that point on the first vote, then there is the option to have a second round of voting. That second round of voting would be conducted in the same way, so it would be by secret ballot. However, what we would have is a situation where the top 2 vote getters would be on the ballot. The other people on that ballot who were running for the position who did not qualify as number 1 or number 2 in vote getting would be removed. So we would start the whole process again, the whole procedure again, have another secret ballot, and then see what the results are. If at the end of the second vote, there is a clear majority winner, then that person will be considered to be chair. If that should not be the case, then we have Rule 46, paragraph 2, which states that the chair, so in this case, we would acting chair, shall decide between the candidates by drawing lots, which is, I think, something that no one really wants to see or envision, but it is the way that the rules of procedure are written to ensure fairness in a way, because at this point, if you've had 2 rounds of voting and you've not been able to come to an agreement, this sense is you just draw a lot. It's an impartial way to do it, and you move forward. Thus, there are only 2 rounds of voting that are provided for in the rules of procedure when we are talking about electing a chair. There are no options that are stated in the rules of procedure to continue voting and to continue going into a 5th or a 6th round for the election of a chair or any member of the Bureau. This is very much intended to kind of just stop it at that particular second voting. So again, the hope obviously is always that we are not going to be going into a vote, because there is that option of having acclamation if everyone agrees in advance, and it would simply be a formal confirmation. But if we do, then this is what the procedure would look like. And I do hope that it is actually useful for everyone to understand how this works, what this looks like. The Secretariat will have everything ready for us, as they always do, and will do a wonderful job in facilitating this, as they always do, to make sure that the voting would happen as under the rules of procedure, and then we would see who the new chair would be and move forward from that. And as I mentioned, it should also be noted that there will be a vacancy for the rapporteur as well, so we will need to have a rapporteur elected during 5.3 and 5.3, and that is of course a critical role as well, because the rapporteur is the one who gives us the reports, who gives us the information on what actually has happened at the meetings, not only for now, but also for future and posterity. So it is a very critical role as well. So I will stop sharing my screen as soon as I can figure out how to do that. There we go. One simple button does everything. And hand it back over to our hosts, to Shellen and friends. And of course, if there are any questions, please do let me know. I'm always happy to answer them. But I thank you all, and I'll look forward to seeing many of you in Geneva quite soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alex. And now we would like to hear the presentation from Steven Setiawan, the thematic focal point for climate action of the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP, to introduce YPAN's strategic partner for this event, the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. Mr. Steven is from Indonesia, and he is a circular economy as well as climate action expert. Mr. Steven, the floor is yours. The PPT will be coming up shortly now.
Thank you, Samuel, for introducing me. Distinguished delegates, colleagues, friends, excellencies, thank you for coming to this event. And I believe that the presentation from Dr. Alex will help us to know better why we are here to hear the chair candidate presentation later. First of all, I will not take your time for too long. I will introduce you to the strategic partner of YPAN, which is CYMG, in introducing and having this event to be run and advertised. So CYMG stands for Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP, or UN Environment Program. And to the next slide, we will see that CYMG is a mandate to coordinate youth engagement to UNEP as one of the 9 major groups via Agenda 21 that has been established in 1992 Rio Earth Summit. We represent more than 2,000 youth organizations, 66 of which are UNEP accredited, and more than 13,000 individual members from more than 130 countries. Our activities support youth environmental leadership through active policy advocacy, expanding youth access to decision-making processes, and building capacity. And we have been active in both UNEA and other core processes, which means it includes regular CPR meetings, regular preparatory processes, and also UNEA resolution implementation, including UNEA 7. But we are also mandated to engage with UNEP-administered MEAs and scientific assessments listed, for example, Montreal Protocol, GEO, Global Plastic Treaty, IPBES, IPCC, IRP, Minamata, etc. And also UNEP-facilitated initiatives and partnerships as listed below. On the next slide. So how does CYMG work? CYMG is strengthening youth engagement and driving ambition in environmental governance through 3 key issues. The first one is capacity building. The second one is expanding access. The third one is policy advocacy. And we are doing this through a series of consultations, for example, webinars on MEAs and ongoing negotiations, and also expanding access by providing youth support through accreditation and sometimes delivering funding from our partners. And then on policy advocacy, we also help to draft position papers and policy briefs, and also engaging in dialogues with national and international authorities. And then on the next slide, one of our key achievements was our engagement in establishing and running Youth Environmental Assembly 2025, UNEA 7 and OSCPR 7. We have a historic number of more than 1,600 YEA third edition attendees. We had 50 bilateral meetings, and we are grateful for our partners and generous support from the listed member states and organizations to have more than 100 youth financially supported. We help to deliver interventions, and we are more than 100 persons and from 100 more countries origin with 10 side events during the whole 3 activities. Yeah, this is the recap of our activities. And to close, to the next slide. So why CYMG is here? Because CYMG also believes in the strong future global plastic treaty, and we view that YPAN as the youth constituency for plastic and for action. We believe that CYMG needs to support and build connections to these organizations and networks and constituencies, because we believe that there are like inline values and actions that we can go together, and we really support YPAN in the implementation of all of the events, including but not limited to this webinar. So for the opportunity, I would like to say thank you, and we'll give back it either to Samuel or to Sharon. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Steven, for the outstanding presentation and for highlighting CYMG achievements and works, as well as programs and engagements. Now, on the next slide, we have Mr. Michael Tobes, the coordinator, one of the coordination team member of the Youth Plastics Action Network. So, Mr. Michael, you may have the floor. Thank you. Yes, and please join YPAN. There are many amazing activities for youth, for non-youth, and for the people across the globe. And now we arrive on the second segment. I would like to yield the floor back to me. So we have here three chair candidates, but however, we would like to begin with the first one before I pass to the other to introduce the other chair. So on the first candidate of the chair, actually we have here Miss Nazia Najib from Pakistan. Miss Nazia Zaib Ali from Pakistan. Today it is unfortunate for us to miss her today because she will be delivering her statement later after the event and will be sharing the statement, her views and perspective, vision and mission through the emails to the participant because Miss Nazia apparently have another engagement that she cannot leave at the moment. And then I would like to introduce briefly about Miss Nazia Zaib Ali. Miss Nazia is from the government of Pakistan. She is currently serving as a Joint Secretary for International Cooperation Affairs at the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination in the government of Pakistan. And she's also concurrently serving at the same time as a Director General for Pakistan Environmental Protection Agency, situated under the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination from the government of Pakistan. And she was studying, she received her bachelor in science, specializing on botany, agriculture, forestry, chemistry, and statistics in 1996 from Government of Girls College, Quetta in Pakistan. And she received a master degree in botany. And she is also the gold medalist recipient within that master program in 1999 at the end of the 20th century from Baluchistan University in Quetta, Pakistan. And then right now, she is serving in the Pakistan Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination, where she handled a lot of issues covering serving as national focal point for the BRS Convention, the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention. And she's also the national focal point for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And she's also focal point of the Montreal Protocol on Ozone Depleting Substance and national focal point for Minamata Convention on Mercury. And she is also currently working to implement national projects, engagements, as well as policy development processes under those multilateral environmental agreements she is responsible for. And sadly, as I mentioned before, Ms. Nazia Zaib Ali is not able to be present here. And therefore, we will now continue to the next chair candidate of the INC Plastic Sterility process. And I now invite my colleague to introduce the next chair candidate, which is Mr. Bomesh Kumar Sitaram. Mr. Bomesh Kumar Sitaram is in here in Zoom. If I may elaborate also, Mr. Bomesh Kumar is currently the member of the Youth Plastics Action Network coordination team. And he will be introducing the chair candidate. He'll be part of the chair candidate introduction. That's what I meant. And Mr. Bomesh Kumar is working on various youth advocacy projects, and he's a very amazing youth. And we met him, if I'm not mistaken, in UNIA 7, but correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, please, you may have the floor.
Thank you. Am I audible? Can you hear me? So I think right now, okay, good. So if I'm not mistaken, right now we are supposed to have like a break before we introduce. Yeah.
Oh yes, we
We'll
will
have
now
10
invite
minutes break and then
Michelle and Shaling for a 10-minute strategic break before proceeding to the next chair
okay.
candidate. Thank you. Michelle, you may have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much. And as mentioned, we are a little bit ahead of schedule due to some last minute changes. And therefore, we will take a 10-minute break and resume at about the 07 or 08. So thank you so much. And then we'll resume the segment 2 of the session.
The recording has
Hello, everybody. We will be resuming soon. Hello, everybody. Before we get started, I'm going to be recording this session. Just a reminder, because we had several new people join, that there is no video in this session. There is also no chat. The chat is disabled to protect the sensitivity of the event and the anonymity of the event. So I will now begin the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for coming back to the second segment. As previously mentioned, if you're new here, my name is Shellen Sailing. I'm the interim chair of the Youth Plastic Action Network, along with many other talented individuals. I want to give a special shout out to many of these individuals who are currently on the Zoom call and co-host: Akash, Dr. Alexandra Harrington, Ashton, Benson, Kartik, Samuel, Sophie, Stephen, Bonda, and Zara, who have all also been very much involved in the coordination of this event. It's amazing to see how youth have grown in this process and come together as not only a team, but I like to joke sometimes a big family. So I will hand it over to our next youth to introduce our next chair candidate.
Hello. For those who just joined, I will now introduce again a bit for those who are new to us, who are just joining. We will repeat the introduction again for you. So my name is Samuel Jose. I'm currently a member of the YPAN coordination team, and I'm also currently serving as a thematic focal point of green economy and resources at the Children and Youth Magic Group, the UNEP. So the first chair candidate, next slide please, is Ms. Nazia Zaid from Pakistan. She is currently the Joint Secretary of International Cooperation at the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination of Pakistan, and she's also currently serving concurrently with the Joint Secretary position. She is also the Director General of the Pakistan Environmental Protection Agency at the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination of Pakistan. She is educated in Pakistan. She was a bachelor degree recipient, Bachelor of Science, specializing on botany, agroforestry, chemistry, and statistics from the Government Girls College in Quetta, Pakistan. And she's also a master in botany, and also the winner of gold medalist in the same university, Balochistan University of Pakistan, where she studied about botany issues as well as environment. And by profession, she is a civil servant, international environmental cooperation, and expert on waste management, chemicals, climate, and pollution. And she is currently serving as the Pakistan National Focal Point for INC process, the Plastics Treaty, and for the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Climate Agreement, the Climate Convention, and then the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, the BRS, Minamata Convention, and Montreal Protocol on ozone depleting substances. Aside from handling mercury, ozone, and then chemical waste and pollution issues, she was also previously working as a chief of international taxes at the Federal Board of Revenue, FBR, Pakistan. Due to her work commitment and personal agenda, she sadly could not join us today live in this Zoom meeting. But worry not, she will be sending her vision statement as well as her mission elaboration as chair candidate of the INC Plastics Treaty to us after the event, and we'll be disseminating it through email to all participants who are registered in the forum. Without further ado, I will now move and shift to Mr. Akash to introduce the next chair candidate. Akash is also part of the YPAN coordination team. Thank you. You may have the floor.
Thank you, Samuel. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear young people, all protocols observed. Good evening, good morning, everyone. I am Bumesh Mostaram, a member of the Youth Plastic Action Network. And in November 24, I had the honor of to be in the INC 5.2 in Busan, 5.1 in Busan, sorry. And today it is with great pleasure that I will be presenting to you His Excellency, the Director, Mr. Jai Sheikh Sila, who is a candidate for the presidency of the INC, who is backed by more than 44 years of experience at the highest levels of environmental governance. Mr. Sila's background is built on a foundation of scientific excellence. As a graduate in chemical engineering from the École Polytechnique of Dakar, he also has a master's at the University of Savoie in air and water, and he has earned titles such as environmental engineer and even an expert in pollution and nuisance prevention. And his technical expertise also allows him to rise through all the levels within the Ministry of Environment of Senegal, which is the METD, first as an officer of the Directorate of Environment, then as head of division, deputy director, and finally the director of the cabinet of the DEEC. And also he subsequently served as technical advisor as the director de cabinet of the ministry. And on the international stage, Mr. Sila has participated in a lot of multilateral environmental agreements. For example, when it comes to the ozone, he was the president of the COP to the Vienna Convention between 2005 to 2006, then again for 2001 to 2024, and of the 37th meeting of the Montreal Protocol in Nairobi. When it comes to climate, he was the Vice President for Africa during COP20 and COP21 in Paris, and member of the board of the Green Climate Fund. And in terms of chemicals, he was the President of the Intergovernmental Forum on Chemical Safety and moderator of the Roundtables on the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. And he also holds the Crown Cross of the National Order of Merit of Senegal and was named Best Ozone Officer in 2005. And he embodies a deep commitment to a coordinated approach in the spirit of Pan-Africanism as well. He is working on various areas to ensure that environmental challenges such as plastic pollution are addressed through reinforced cooperation between nations. So, Votre Excellency, the floor is yours, and it is with great honor that we welcome you here. Even myself, as an African from a small island developing state, it is a great honor for us to welcome you here. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this invitation. And as you may know, I am youth. I have 25 years being youth. You forget to mention this, but it's not in my CV. And it's meaning that I don't know why we are having this meeting, but I completely agree and adhere on what you are doing. And I take it as a large CSO where we keep fighting always to have inclusiveness as stated in the resolution 514. And if you see the African group, it's the model of inclusiveness, because it's not only member state, it's also all major group present in the African group and participating into all our meeting. It's meaning, and we keep this because we are like you want to protect the environment always. What is not in my CV also is I am from any party, political party. I am free and just work for the country, for the continent, for the world, on protecting environment. As you stated, I have extensive experience in multilateral processes, and my bureau provides relevant detail on this. We need for this process of INC to ensure transparency, accountability, neutrality, inclusiveness, and full participation into the INC process. Becoming a chair, I can devote 100% of my time on this, and my country agree on that, and also the team that we will put in place will also contribute and will avoid any conflict with the secretariat, because as you know, we have UNEP as secretariat of this, and any team that you have to put in place, you make sure that this team is not interfering to the work of the process, including UNEP role as secretariat. Harness effort among negotiators to build convergences on issues of divergences, being procedural of substantive issues, how do we make? And also we need to provide assurance on a balanced approach to take into account all views, and all views count, because it's not only the larger group, regional group, but also as Africa is sometimes a group neglected, we are very close to you and to the civil society, and all views have to be taken into account. We need also to deploy all possible effort to listen, remain open, create opportunity for negotiators to speak to each other in order to advance in the process. On this process, we need only, I think, to me, one more meeting, 5.4, because we already come from a long journey from Punta del Este to Paris, Ottawa, Busan, and Geneva, and I don't know the next of this meeting. Nairobi is the candidate, but we need to finalize this in 5.4, and for that we need a very intensive intersessional period from 7 February to the next INC meeting, and this intersessional period will need some bilateral, multilateral, trilateral, and also have consideration on consultation, consult everybody, and be neutral. Because I know that in my past life, being coordinator for Africa on means of implementation, I used to be very active, but this I have to forget about this activity and be as neutral as possible to push the process. And we need to give due consideration to new perspectives, give positive meaning to share, but differentiate responsibility to account for the world's diversity. The knowledge and strength and expertise that we have in all sides, and in everywhere we have this knowledge and strength and expertise, we need to put it for the benefits of the process, and use also independent science to inform our deliberation. Because sometimes we are putting some political or some national interests, like on definition. Some definitions are purely scientific, technical matter, and we don't need to go for our own interests on this. We need to commit also to working tirelessly during the negotiation period and in the international period to facilitate convergence and advance the process decisively towards the conclusion of a treaty as per the UNEA mandate. Because the UNEA mandate is very clear, and we some countries are asking for scope, I don't know why we don't put this scope inside the treaty. If it is needed, we have some insight from the resolution. And we need to allow also observer to observe, because it is also in the resolution that you have to be inclusive, and it's the right of the observer to contribute and to observe. We need to avoid, in this sense, informal meeting, because when you go to informal, it's meaning that we are starting excluding other than the member states, and we need to have everybody on board. We have some arrangement until now, like the contact group, we have the co-chair elected. All these things, we need to sit together with the secretariat and the bureau, and the bureau have to decide. It's not being shared, it doesn't mean that you will decide everything. You will decide nothing. You just make sure that the rules is functioning well, and we respect all the commitment, and the bureau have to be in the front line and being the one approving everything with due consideration of input received from other major group. As youth, I met with youth in Nairobi and some larger group. I think we have to keep this arrangement anytime during the process. Intentionally, if you send, you have my detailed contact on telephone, email, WhatsApp. Every time somebody or a group send a message, question, want to discuss, I'm open of that, because I devote 100% of my time on this, and I know that we can achieve this. Otherwise, I will not be candidate, because being in the process since the inception, before the resolution, and being in the bureau until the first bureau until now, I think that we know the position of everybody, all single country and groups. We need to build some landing zone, some convergences. And I stop here, and thank you also for the invitation, and ready for any question you may ask. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Votre Excellence. It has been an honor to hear from you. And now I will yield the floor to my colleague, Ms. Wanda Stamford, who is also a member of the White Man Group and is doing a great job. So I will yield the floor to my colleague. Wanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Wanda Stamford. I have been involved in the different negotiations and in the plastic space for the last 7 years, having done education, but also mechanical recycling of plastics. So this topic is very dear to my heart. And I'm very grateful to be able to introduce His Excellency, Julio Cordano. He is the head of Environment, Climate Change and Oceans Department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Chile. He's also the head of Climate Change Expert Group of OECD, and the chair of Chile's for higher level panel on sustainable ocean economy. His Excellency Cordano's educational background involves a Bachelor's of Art focusing on history at the University of Chile and a Master's of Public Management at the Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. Mr. Cordano has sustained a long career starting at Foreign Services and continuing as a diplomat and ambassador, always with an expertise in environmental negotiations, ocean conservation, which also includes the BBNJ, that being the UN Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Treaties, being the head of delegation of Chile to the Regional Fisheries Organization of the South Pacific, and leading the national delegation of UNFCCC, which stands for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties, where Mr. Cordano has made significant strides that has been seen since 2012. It is with great joy that we welcome His Excellency Julio Cardano to speak to us today.
Yes, thank you very much, Wanda, for that introduction. I think that you made justice to the long time that I've been connected to this issue. But I think my CV it's well. It is a good summary of that. But I think the most important now is how we can move forward in this important task that we have ahead of us in the ANC process. Let me start by saying that it's great to be here, and thank you so much to the youth constituency for inviting me to provide some remarks and also maybe to hear from you your comments and questions. We had already a meeting in Nairobi, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I received your comments and ideas in that meeting. It's great to have a follow-up in this opportunity. So let me start by saying that, plastic pollution is an urgent matter. We need to tackle it with a resolution and with clear decision and clear pathways. It is not an easy job. I think the current situation of plastic is that we have an explosion of plastic production in the last 50 years, and that has amounted to many millions of tons of plastic pollution that is not only produced, but also much more concern is the fact that it becomes pollution. So in the next couple of decades, the expectation is that trend will continue, unless, of course, we do something about it. And so the urgency is there. And at the same time, I think it's important to say that there are no easy way outs. There are no silver bullets here. And there's a very simple reason for that. The fact that plastic pollution is in the environment, is in our bodies, is affecting our health, reflects a very deep situation, a very complex problem that will require all of our minds, all of our willingness to try to come with a solution. And I'm saying, and let me stop for a moment about the complexity of the issue, because as you know, plastic pollution or plastic production and plastic products in general are not only, they're not one single object. There are different types of plastics, there are different types of product, there are different types of chemicals, thousands of chemicals associated with plastic production. And it would take a long time really to tackle the great variety of products and chemicals that exist already in the market. But it's not only an issue of production, it's also an issue of economics, it's also an issue of social impacts, it's also an issue of just transition, it's also an issue of industrial transformation. And as you know, there are different levels of development. Developing countries will have more difficult time to adjust to the new regulations. We need to avoid a situation whereby we establish standards that affect negatively developing countries that have the same capacities, and at the same time they are at the user end of the whole chain. So we are facing a very complex situation that at the same time reflects our gaps in knowledge in terms of science, in terms of observation. We don't know how much plastic is actually in our bodies. We don't know exactly what is the impact, the full impact of plastic in our health. We know for certain that there is a very adverse effect of plastic in our bodies, in our health. We know that plastic pollution exists and is affecting very gravely the environments around us. But there's so much more to be known. There's so much more to understand, and understand also what type of response we need to produce. So this introduction is just to say that we're facing a very complex issue here, and to complex issues, there are not easy solutions. And probably what we will achieve in this process, in this treaty, because I'm convinced that we will have a treaty, it needs to also to provide the basic and the fundamentals for a conversation that will continue. There will much more work after the adoption of the treaty. So I think the chair in that regard will need to have that in mind, and we need to make sure that everybody understands that the complexity of that issue, of the issue of plastic pollution, needs to invite for more work. And if we're talking about plastic production in the future that is projected to continue growing, we need also to understand that plastic pollution is also an intergenerational issue. This is why it's so important the participation of young people. We know, and we must hear the voices of younger generation, and of course, making sure that we have in our minds the rights of future generations as well. This is absolutely crucial. It is the same as in climate change, and you must have seen many reports of the IPCC that precisely refer to the fact that current generations, which are mostly responsible for the current emission levels, at the same time are the least impacted by those emissions. And on the contrary, the new generations that are born today are the least responsible, but they will be most impacted by the impact of emissions. The same thing happens with plastic pollution. So I think that intergenerational issue must be in our minds when we discuss this issue, and must be in our minds now, not tonight, not tomorrow, not the next week. So it's extremely important then that when we talk about ambition in this regard, we also think about the solutions that we can provide, following also this intergenerational perspective. But after this introduction, I just wanted to refer to where we are now. And as you know, on the 7th of February in Geneva, we will elect a new chair. And GULAG has nominated me as a candidate for that. And we've been working on listening very actively to not only to delegations, but also to observers, to try to understand where the concerns are and where are the pathways to make progress in this process. To me, after the 7th of February, after the election of the chair will need to have to go and to lead some very important tasks immediately after the election. One task is to debate about the mode of work. And as you know, there's been a lot of concerns about the mode of work that we saw in Geneva as not the right approach to really reach an agreement in the INC process. Probably the mode of work will need to be reconsidered, and probably we will need to have more flexible approaches. Not only, this approach of having contact groups with text on the screen debating which bracket or which comma. I think that's not going to work if we really want to have an achievement here that is meaningful and that respond to the expectations of this treaty. Probably we will need to have a little bit more of a political level that is more senior in the type of discussions that we will need to have. So to understand where are the balances and where are the concerns of delegations, how can we make sure that we achieve an agreement that respond to what we need now, and at the same time plants the seed of a discussion that needs to continue in the future. So the mode of work is something that is extremely important, and that's a conversation that we need to have right after the election of the chair. Second one is we need to re-engage in substantive discussions. I think at this stage, I think we have, all of us, we're pretty, pretty sure that we already have a landscape of the major issues in the text. And we need to talk about the ultimate goal of the text. We need to talk about finance. We need to talk about just transition. We need to talk about products and production. We need to talk about design, transparency, reports. So many things that are already in the menu, so to speak, of the discussion. And we need to re-engage in that. Of course, as you know, there are still divergent views among delegations, and we need to make sure that everybody speaks their mind. But I think in that re-engagement, I think we need to sort of shift gears in a way, because so far there's been a debate that has somehow created a rift among delegations, and that in any negotiation, in any multilateral process, I think that is not desirable. We need to create more proximity between delegations. We need to make sure that we see eye to eye, that we understand our concerns, but at the same time, we aim for a common goal, which is delivering on what we have and delivering on the mandate that came from Resolution 514. From that point of view, I have good news for you, which is that I had many meetings in Nairobi during UNIA, and I can tell you, there's no one in the many meetings that I had, no one said this process is dead. We don't want an agreement. Everybody said, we understand that there's a need for an agreement. We want an agreement. So, and that's from every corner of the world, for every delegation of all groups. So I think we need to take that energy and bring it forward in a manner that is conducive to a successful outcome. So substantive discussion, re-engagement is precisely what we need. Finally, we need to understand where we will start from. So we saw what happened in Geneva. Unfortunately, the iterations, the text that the chair presented, sparked some very strong reactions from the room, and that creates a situation where it's going to be very difficult that any of those texts can be considered a starting point in the negotiations. We need to play safe, and we need to consult with the delegations. And I can tell you, in my consultations at least, what I hear often, and I guess it's a majority trend, is that the new chair maybe should be requested with the creation or with the elaboration of a new text that can bring together all the visions, that we can sit around the table around a text that has clear options, but at the same time that takes advantage of the progress that we actually had in Geneva in other aspects. Maybe in production and other things, we didn't make much progress in bringing people together or closer. But there are other aspects of the text that are also important, that maybe we did have we achieved some progress. So bringing all that together in order to make sure that we reflect the current state of affairs in the text, I think is quite important. So that's the third goal that the chair will need to conduct right after the election of the chair, in my opinion. Finally, let me finish with two quick observations. One of the things that I was very surprised and actually appalled during the Geneva meeting was the lack of connection and spaces for observers to share their views, not only with the chair, but also in general with parties and with delegations. I was quite surprised that really the only time where observers could actually interact or listen to what delegations could say in public was in the plenary. And plenary were just a couple of them, maybe one at the end of the first week, and maybe a couple of them in the second week. And as you might remember, those were very lively plenaries. And I don't think that was enough really for a good engagement and healthy engagement with observers. If I was elected chair, I think that would be one of the priorities here. And I think in the meetings that we had actually in Nairobi, this also came up as a part of our conversation. And I think it would be very, very useful if the new chair has a team that includes one person that at least is entitled, which is a close representative of the chair, and that serves as a representative of the chair to the observers. So that communication can be a continuous flow. And the chair, of course, as much as possible, should be personally in touch with the observers and continuously inform and receive inputs. But if that's not possible, and of course that will not be possible in many instances, at least there should be somebody very close to the chair, to part of his or her team, to act, on his behalf, in order to make sure that connection and that communication is not lost. So that's something that I think it would be a good improvement in the process. Finally, the last point I wanted to make, and I'm sorry I've been a little longer in my intervention, but the last point I wanted to make is the issue of neutrality. I think it's super important that as we re-engage again in the INC process, we understand that we need to listen to everyone. I don't believe that the idea of having good people and bad people, that's not a good approach. I think I've heard also many delegations that say, well, there's been that rift between groups of delegation, and I think that the chair needs to feel a little bit that gap and provide reassurances that everybody will be heard, that everybody will be respected, and everybody will be considered in their opinions and their visions. So Chile, for example, in my case, Chile is part of the HAC. Chile is part of the High Ambition Coalition. But of course, if I was elected chair, I will need to leave that hat at the door. I will need to make sure that I am not a representative of the HAC, but I'm a chair that needs to listen to everyone and provide the certainties that everybody will have his or her say in this process. So neutrality is very important. Inclusivity, of course, is very important. And that's my expectation of anyone who is elected chair. And of course, I presented my name, and that would be the principles that I will follow and I will abide to. So again, thank you so much for the introduction, Wanda, and I really look forward to hear your views and comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for the wonderful presentation. And on that note, we will now head over to the Q&A session. So, hello, I'm Zara, and I'm 16 years old.
And I'm Ashton, and I'm 15 years old. And we've been involved in the INC process since I was 14 and I was 12, where we've been some of the youngest delegates at the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations, having attended INCs 2, 4, 5.1, and 5.2.
As a part of the WIPAN coordination team, we're thrilled to be here, and we're actually missing class to be here, but figured it was definitely worth missing maths for.
We'd also like to clarify that the questions being chosen are independent views expressed by the speakers and participants, and these don't reflect the Youth Plastic Action Network's positions or opinions in any form, and also that the questions will be addressed to both candidates.
And may we also please request Your Excellencies for you to keep your questions as brief as possible, as we have a long list of questions and only a few minutes to go through them. So on that note, the first question is, what are the biggest challenges you would envision for the new chair? Thank you. Whichever one of you would be comfortable with going first, please feel free to go ahead. Thank you.
Maybe I can attempt to go first, just to make use of the time. No, thank you very much for the question. It's hard to really to pinpoint one challenge, but one of the biggest challenge I think for the new chair will be precisely to bring people together again at the negotiation table on an equal footing. On that note, I would like to make sure that I've been careful not to talk about trust, because I think this is not about creating trust or recognizing that trust has been broken, but I think it's much more about we are collectively in this endeavor and we have not been able to be successful together. The idea now, I think, is to again identify that we do have a common interest, which is completing this task and delivering on a concrete result, and bring people together around the table means, again, as I was saying before, looking at each other eye to eye, listening to each other with respect, and trying to make sure that we understand the concerns of everyone, and making sure at the same time that we do not lower the bar of ambition, in the sense that we need to make sure that the ultimate goal of the agreement, that could be, stopping plastic pollution, can actually be our North Star, and that we agree on certain procedures and instruments in order to get to that point. But bringing people together around the table, including observers, I think it's clearly probably one of the more important challenges of the incoming chair.
I can very shortly say that the main challenge is the transparency, and building on the transparency is the trust. Because if losing trust and transparency, you will not go anywhere. And this happened in the last day of Busan, and this happened again also in the last day of Geneva. You know, we don't need to be in panic. Everything have to be planned and also agreed by the bureau. We have to come back on the bureau, and also to inform all the groups and measure group on the way forward. Anytime we and this one, whatever we'll do in the last day and the last time, because the last time when we are looking for text, sometimes we want to have a close meeting with some country. Other country are complaining. They don't know how this process is put in place. Why the civil society is not participating, because the observers have to observe and to participate. This one, that is the big challenge. And when we bring back this trust between us, we can go ahead and finalize this process. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is, what can you do to ensure that a highly ambitious plastics treaty is adopted, and one that focuses on the life cycle of plastics all the way through responsible production and consumption to proper waste management?
Yes, on this also, you know, the resolution is very clear. The resolution says the full life cycle of plastic. The full life cycle of plastic is starting from where the plastic is coming from until where the plastic is going, and respecting the environment. And on this, we need to make sure that all these elements are in the treaty. But now the big challenge, having all the elements in the treaty, is when these have to be treated. Immediately in the treaty, we can have some action. And also, we have to know that we have a COP upcoming, and during the COP, those decisions that we cannot have them right away, right now, we need a timeline for this decision. Like if you want to cap the production, you can go from COP to COP. But on this, these have to be in the treaty, but with a timeline very clear, depending on the conference of parties. I stop here also to not be long. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. just to react to the question, I think it's a very good question, and it actually looks into the sort of the end game of the whole process. And to be honest, I think we need to be realistic that there's still some important divergences, and something I think at the end of Geneva we could notice and we could see is that many delegations have one concept of life cycle, and other delegations have a different concept of life cycle. I agree with Sila that you know, I think the resolution is quite clear from the 514 resolution, but it doesn't matter what I think. What is important is that everybody sees the same thing in the text. And one of the reasons why we haven't been able to succeed in this process is precisely because there is this gap of understanding. So in any multilateral process, this is the United Nations, we need to sit down and talk through and understand each other and try to resolve this in a manner that is, respectful and convenient to everyone. Bearing in mind that we have an ultimate goal, right? To end plastic pollution. So how do we achieve that? How do we make sure that we keep the ambition high and we remain faithful and loyal to the ultimate goal of our attempts in our work? That is not an easy answer, and I guess I need to be honest and transparent with you. I think that is something that we need to work all together. This is why multilateralism does not have silver bullets. We need to discuss and find ways that can be representative of all the visions. And of course, flexibility will be needed. And if I'm elected chair, I will be calling on everyone to be flexible. It is the only way. In that regard, I do believe that the treaty needs to touch on all of the topics that I mentioned before. I think if there is a balance, for example, between the ultimate goal and the finance structure that is going to be created, so there's a balance there, and all those balances across the text will need to be decided in order to adopt something that is meaningful, that is useful, and that will remain over time. This is important. Because if we don't succeed in an ambitious treaty that is up to the task of this enormous amount of plastic pollution that exists already and that will continue to grow, there are reports that say that the production of plastic will triple by 2060, and pollution will triple as well, will accompany that trend. So if we don't, we're not able to find a credible answer to that, then the treaty will not survive the test of time. So this is only just to say that precisely that the role of the chair will be to conduct a discussion in order to make sure that we adopt a treaty that is meaningful and endures the test of time.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what are the biggest opportunities for the new chair to advance the treaty negotiations?
I believe this will also be our final question, which we will have time for. And thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for taking the time today and for your incredible responses. Thank you.
Happy to go first. Well, biggest opportunities. I guess, one thing that I think we need to take into account is that we need to recognize that there are lessons learned here. And one opportunity here is to make sure that we go deeper in those things that have been done well and avoid those things that have created problems. I mentioned some of them. For example, the poor connection with and dialogue with observers needs to be improved. The mode of work needs to be improved, and of course the direct conversation and bringing people around the table needs to happen as soon as possible. I think one great opportunity as well, beyond establishing a robust and well-structured treaty, is started talking about what will happen right after the treaty. And here, the treaty will not go into details, probably, will not set sort of specific tasks around, extended producer responsibility or, topics that are so complex, like existing plastic pollution and what do we do with the plastic that is in the ocean. So all those are enormous tasks that we have to deal with. So I think one opportunity here is that as we get closer to the end line of the adoption of the treaty, we also understand how much work will still be pending and will still be as important as the treaty itself, because we will go deeper into specifics and we will be responding probably to specific needs and concerns that had been aired during the negotiation. So I think maybe one of the biggest opportunities is precisely to take advantage of the lessons learned, but also understand what comes after the treaty, which I think is maybe a discussion that hasn't really happened and we haven't made justice really to the important work streams that will come after the adoption of the treaty. So I know this is the last question, so I take advantage, Sarah and Ashton, to thank you very much for your engagement. I congratulate you. I'm sure this missed day in school will be worth it. So thank you very much, and I encourage you to continue doing the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Excellency. And anything else to add to this, sir?
Okay, I thank Julio for facilitating me the live. And I think the major opportunity to me is text. First, we have two major opportunities, text and also participation. We have, from the beginning to now, we have 4 texts. One from Ottawa, very with bracketed text. One from Busan, and 2 texts from Geneva. If we compile all the texts, you have all the elements in the text. But now the problem is how you can have a balanced text. I don't want to elaborate on this, but just the opportunity is we have substances. The second is we have participation. And everybody is ready for participation. Nobody withdraw until now. Even I see some withdraw in international area, but plastic is still safe. And this participation is from member state groups and major group also. We have to take all on board and be transparent, build the trust, and finalize this treaty with the next 5.4, followed by diplomatic conference, and also to have the COP upcoming to continue the work. It's not a work that we finish in one set, and we need to have a roadmap throughout the COP to finalize everything. But to summary, we have the text and we have participation. And I thank you also for this opportunity, because every time we met with a group, you learn a lot, you receive a lot with the question, and those also will help you for your future. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Son Excellence Sila, y muchas gracias, Su Excelencia Cordano. Thank you all for being here today. We are eager to see some of you at 5.3 and to continue these discussions in developing the treaty. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.